just say it. Just say his name, and it just gets you in a weird just mood, just Bergman. Because you don't know what's going to happen once you say his name, Bergman. Anyway, hello there, Nate Jackson, Criterion Collection Reviewer Guy, back at you once again with Bergman. Number 261, Ingmar Bergman's Fanny and Alexander. Now, of course, for those of you wondering why you're not what happened to Eyes Without a Face 260 and your friend sitting next to you, well, here's the thing. I am actually going to be out of town this Saturday, so I thought, so we only have time for 3 reviews this week. So I thought, well, why don't we dedicate this week to the Fanny and Alexander box set, considering, we can do the the television version one day, and then the theatrical version the second day, and then the third be the making of Fanny and Alexander. So anyway, so I thought we'll just switch it up. We're gonna push it. I told my friend we're gonna push it till next week, next Monday. For sure, next Monday has got to be the day when we do Eyes Without a Face. So next Monday, watch for it. But for now, we got Bergman, and I've been sort of dreading this one. I've been dreading this one for a long time, just because it's like 5 hours. It's just a 5-hour Bergman. I thought Scenes from a Marriage was long, but although in the end I liked Scenes from a Marriage. Now, can I say the same for this? Not as much. It honestly wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's not as great as everybody says it is. But we'll talk about it in a second. So anyway, 1982, 312 minutes. 312 minutes. Oh, God. Color, Swedish, blah, blah, blah. So apparently, this was the television version. It was made as a 4-part miniseries. However, apparently the theatrical version was shown first, and although it was made, at the later, so that's basically the history of it. I didn't know that. I guess it wasn't aired until after the movie version came out. But yeah, basically, what can I say? It's 4 episodes, and there are 5. It's split up into. It has a prologue. There are 5 acts, and then there is a epilogue. And so I took notes because I want to take note. I took notes for this one, so I'm just going to recite the notes to you. Because I just basically summarized the notes, and basically I did this because I wanted to compare it to the theatrical version to see what he cuts out and all that. Because I did that with Brazil, and of course Brazil was just a total mindfuck, just the way he does. They had to cut up that movie. So anyway, the movie's kind of I think, first of all, I think the movie title is kind of misleading, Fanny and Alexander. He just called it Alexander, or Alexander and Fanny, because, it's more about his, Alexander than Fanny. Fanny's just there, she's just kind of there, just floats around with Alexander, Tries to help him out, tries to be a good sister and all that, but she just kind of is very secondary when it comes to Alexander's side of the story. So anyway, in the prologue, we don't even meet Fanny till halfway through the first act of the first episode. The prologue is basically just Alexander running around the house, and he dreams that these statues come to life, and he sees the Grim Reaper at one point, and his mother's looking for him, and that's basically the prologue. So I guess we get the sense that Alexander is a dreamer, which I guess is a nice little setup. And then we get the first act. I forget it's like the Earlhard, Alexander and Fanny Earlhard. Oh gosh, what are their last names? Earlhard. They have a really unique name. Ekdahl. That's it, Ekdahl. Fanny Alexander Ekdahl. The Ekdahl family celebrate the Christmas season or something like that. Anyway, they're actors, and they put on this nativity play, and they're watching, and the people watch it, and so later on they put on a speech, or they put on a little, they have a dinner, and everybody goes nuts, and there's a lot of secondary family members in here that are important to the plot, but not as much so as the mother and father, Oscar and Emily. I think it's Emily. I'm calling her Emily. Yeah, Oscar and Emily are Fanny Alexander's father. And there's the brother, the Uncle Carl, and Aunt Lydia, I think. And there's Uncle Gustav. And and there's a lot of, let's see, what did I take? Let's see what notes. Father gets speech, family greets each other, kids look at presents. Carl, I was pretty detailed at the beginning. Alexander sticks flag in hair, the table sings, maids complain, guests talk, a rhyme for the porridge, singing and dancing, maids decorate tree, Uncle Carl farts. Yeah, there's a scene where Alexander comes out and Carl sneaks him out of bed to listen to him fart, and they light the candles behind his farts, and he blows the candle out. And it's like, yeah, okay. The kids play. One of the maids, Maj, gets slapped. They go to bed, sing the prayer, and then the woman sings, and Maj goes in and shows Alexander their new the dress that Gustav gave her. Apparently, Maj is Gustav's. I don't even know is his name Gustav? Yeah, Gustav Adolf Erkdahl. Gustav is apparently Maj is apparently Gustav's mistress, and even though he's married to Alma. And yeah, so anyway. Basically, yeah. So there's that, and there's also the family friend Isak Jacoby, who runs this like antique shop, and he's invited to the party, and they all they have nuts, and they go. They say they're gonna go celebrate. They're gonna put on Hamlet next, and the kids want to be in Hamlet, but they're not having it, and yeah, so basically that's the first I think the first episode, the first act of the episode is more or less just a setup for the rest of the movie. There's really little to no plot in the first act. It's basically just the family just going around and I'd like to think that this was probably the most. It's known that this is a very, very autobiographical film. In fact, it's probably Bergman's most personal film. And I'd like to think that this was the episode where Bergman just decided to just tell as many little mini stories as he could, and just little things that he remembered and all that. And this was what he wanted. He just dedicated a lot of little mini things, little vignettes to this story, because we don't really get the really big plot until the second act, or episode 2. And so let's move on to that. So second act, the ghost rehearsal. We're now back at the theater. Hamlet, they're doing Hamlet, and Alexander's watching his father. His father plays Hamlet, and he has a stroke, and he's rushed to hospital, and they say that he isn't doing well. And Alexander's really depressed, and Fanny tries to cheer him up and all that, but to no avail. And then finally Oscar passes, and of course Emily is very upset. She screams, bloody murder when she or screams, cries, and yeah. So this soldier goes to, I guess, pay his respects, and the bishop comes in. And the bishop becomes very sweet on Emily, so much that she ends up marrying him. After that's actually the third act. But yeah, so they have the funeral for Oscar, and during the funeral, as they're walking, Alexander says like every curse word he can think of, and Fanny looks at him, And then they have dinner, and then Fanny and Alexander leave, and they watch this slideshow while Alexander's just too depressed to eat. And that's basically the second act. It's just basically about, Oscar's death. The third act involves, the theater, and I guess Emily. I'm trying to think of how this works. So Emily, I guess, says that she's going to leave the theater because she's going to marry the bishop, and the bishop from the get-go seems to not like Alexander. And now some of this is because Alexander lies. He lies at church. He tells these like fantastic stories. And, at first the, bishop just sits him down and says, please, don't lie. Don't tell these stories. And then his mother says, we're going to get married. Yay. And then, so they sit down and pray, and Alexander looks over on the other side of the room, and the ghost of his father is standing on the other side of the room watching him. And throughout this, and then later on they get married, and at the ceremony he's there watching. And basically, the end of the third part, I think, basically ends with Emily and Henrietta arguing. And Henrietta is the bishop's sister, and they argue about how she should raise her children. And that's basically the end of episode 2. Episode 2 is, I think, both the second act and third act. It's both part 2 and 3 in one. So basically and it kind of ends with actually no, that's not till later. So that's the end of the plot, that part. The fourth act, episode 3, is subtitled Events of Summer. It's raining, and Fanny and Alexander now live in the attic, or like this upstairs room. They don't get to go out very much because the bishop basically doesn't like them. And Alexander tells Justina, which is one of his servants, one of the bishop's servants, this fantastic story about how the bishop murdered his wife and children and threw them in a trunk or something and locked them up or something. And Justina is very distressed by the story and tells the bishop. The bishop's pissed off, and so basically the bishop takes Alexander and Fanny into his study, and he basically tries them and gets them to confess to lying to Justina. Although Alexander says no, she made it up. She was dreaming. She was dreaming when I said it. Fair enough. So Alexander, by this point, the bishop's had enough, and so Alexander is whipped basically. And at first he says no, I still ain't gonna tell you no. But then one more whip, and Alexander breaks down and says, I'm sorry, Jesus. And he says, I whipped you out of love. And I'm like, bullshit. Meanwhile, Oscar is now having conversations with Helena, who is Emily's mother. And so basically later Helena and Emily talk, and Emily wants out. She realizes that the bishop is not the man she married. He's too stern. They won't let the children do anything, is really upsetting. And at one point he ends up hiding the key from she has to ask him permission to see her own children. And so at one point he ends up knocking over what happened? He locks. No, is that in chapter? That is episode. No, that is. At one point, he locks Alexander in the attic. After he whips him, and the ghosts of the children haunt the bishop's children haunt Alexander, and distress the hell out of him. And I thought that was one of the most fucked up scenes. And Emily's pissed off, and so she wrestles the key out of Henrietta's hands. I think it's Henrietta, and knocks her over to console Alexander, and then later on, Gustav and Carl and Lydia and Alma all go to visit Helena, and basically, and Carl and Lydia are fighting about something, and Emily confronts the bishop and says that she wants out, but he's saying, "Oh, we won't have any of that." And yeah, so that's episode 4, episode 3, episode 4, Act 5, Demons, is basically the final big part. Isak Jacoby, their friend, says that he wants to buy a chest from the bishop, and when he does so, he says, here, I want you to. He gives him the money. The bishop goes off to count the money. He has the children come down because what he's going to do is smuggle the children in the chest, and he brings the children in there, and he basically he shows them the chest, here's the part that I didn't get, and a lot of people were confused by this, and I guess it makes sense when you think about it, when you analyze it a little more. The bishop, Isak shows, opens the chest and shows the bishop that there's nothing in there. Although I guess Fanny Alexander is supposed to be there, and so it's like, okay, wait, didn't you just not see that the children are in there? So they talk for a second, and then the bishop shoves Isak down to the ground and says, you fool, you're supposed to lie, you're trying to steal my children, and he runs upstairs, and Isak does this scream, and there's this flash of light, and suddenly the children are upstairs. And so it's like the bishop's like, wait, what? Totally doesn't understand what happened, And I guess what it is that he conjured the Isak has magic powers and so he was able to conjure an image of the children up in the place where the bishop has them locked up. And so anyway, so Isak is able to smuggle the children up to a shop. And they hang out there. Isak tells them stories. And at one point, Alexander has this really weird dream with all these native people and his mother with dark hair or something floating around. Or I don't know. I think it's supposed to be and it has Justina's hands are all bloody. I think it's supposed to be the death of the bishop or something like that. And so anyway, later on, Gustav and Carl go to visit the bishop and demand that he give back the children, and basically, so but Emily comes in and says, Emily says that no, don't interfere, I don't, we're happy here, just go, although I think by this point, and then the bishop finds out that the children are gone, and and I'm trying to think of what else. Alexander is lost and finds Gustav. So Alexander gets lost in the middle of the night and walks around and finds his father and all that. The bishop wants the children back, and God is a puppet, and he meets this puppet master, and so what happens is Emily ends up drugging the bishop and putting his sleeping pills in his soup broth or something like that. And Isak's nephew, Ismail, who is this androgynous nephew, that is, I guess, magical too, and shows Alexander the bishop's death. What happened is apparently the maid or Justina or his sister Henrietta knocks over this gas lamp and sets her sheets on fire, her nightrobe, her nightgown on fire, and runs into the bishop's room and falls on top of him. And he ends up getting set on fire, he pushes her off, but apparently the bishop ends up dying anyway. And we don't see a lot of this. All we see is is Henrietta. I think it's Henrietta with her dress on fire. The rest of it is told to us through the police, who tell Emily the circumstances. And with this, Emily returns to the theater and says, "Hey, we're back," and all that. And that's basically the end of the fifth act. The story. And then that's the final big part. The movie, though, the show ends with a epilogue with the christening of Emily and the bishop's daughter, as well as Gustav and his mistress Maj's daughter. They're christened together, and Gustav does this rambling speech about he just gets all giddy and all that, and Maj, I guess, wants to move to Stockholm with her friend, with one of the daughters or some daughter or something like that, but basically the thing ends with Alexander being haunted by the ghost of the bishop, basically saying, "I'll never leave you," or something like that. At the end, like, Alexander's walking and he gets hit by the ghost of the bishop, and it just ends with Alexander, I guess, feeling scared for the future while Emily reads to him. And yeah, that's Fanny and Alexander for you. So, spoilers, of course. I should have mentioned spoilers before. But I'm going to rate it S. This is rated S. I had to tell you about this one. So, yes, it's really friggin' long. I don't know how the hell I got through it all. So, what can I say? Like I said, it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was long. I think the first act was really extraneous and a lot of, like, just stuff. I like plot, especially in a Bergman movie. I need plot in a Bergman movie. I'm going to watch a Bergman movie. Something must happen, Don't give me no silence or no through glass darkly where things happen, but barely, I need stuff to move, There's a lot of stuff that happens in Fanny and Alexander, but just not in the first hour and a half, And so, yeah, that's just, apart from that, it's not bad. Not a bad one. I think Bergman's just was made for TV, I think he makes decent TV miniseries, Scenes, like I said, I like Scenes from Marriage. I like the way you didn't have to take it all in one big stride, the way you do with Fanny Alexander. You have these episodes you can watch, watch them all separately if you want, or that. Although there is, of course, the theatrical versions of both Scenes from Marriage and Fanny Alexander, which we will get to on Thursday. And but yes, and of course they probably don't hold up to the full edits, but they're interesting. They're interesting little bite-sized versions of these interesting stories. And yeah, so I'm not sure where I was going with this, but basically, Fanny Alexander is not horrible. I think I liked it because of the television series version, the television aspect of it. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I don't really have much to say. Bergman just, this is definitely a movie about children. I think I remember he said in that one interview, when children are in the play, when children are in there, they're basically, they take away from, they basically are the biggest distraction, And so he made that one movie. What was it? Smiles of a Summer Night, I think. Yeah, which is another great Bergman film. And there's like little to no children in that movie because he wanted it to be about adult situations, I guess. And so, yeah, that's all I can't really say anything else. Yes, it's long, but if you can make it through the first act, you got yourself a decent story. You got yourself a pretty interesting story. At the same time, I really wish there'd been more Fanny. Why call it Fanny and Alexander if it's just about Alexander, basically, I wish that there was a lot more interaction between... I was hoping that there would be a lot more interaction with Fanny and Alexander, between the two siblings, They're in the titles. I want them to, like, play or just, have dialogue between each other, to team up and, kick the bishop's butt or something like that, Or at least just console each other, There's a little bit of it in there, but not a lot, It was kind of disappointing. A little misleading, but maybe it's just about the two children in general. That's why he called it Fanny and Alexander. So yes, that's all I'm gonna say. Fanny and Alexander, rating. Not bad. I'll give it an A-. the minus for the whole first act. If the whole first act wouldn't have given me a little more plot and set up the characters a little better, because I had no clue who's who, until like long ways into the, until about the third or halfway through the second act or the third act, That's when I started figuring out what was going on and, who knew all the characters, Gustav and Carl, and who's married to who, and I couldn't figure out, especially Maj. I was like, okay, she's his mistress. Okay, I was like, Jesus Christ, just give us all these characters in like half hour, an hour and a half, and try to have us trying to figure out who's who. It's just like real smooth, Bergman, real smooth. But once you have to get past it, you got yourself a story, and not bad. So A-. And yeah, so that's basically it. It's a 2-disc. This is number 2. We're just discussing 242, which is the television version. And so basically there's 2 discs to this part. Disc 1 has episodes 1 and 2. Disc 2 has episodes 3 and 4, as well as a new documentary, a 40-minute documentary called Fanny and Alexander, a Bergman Tapestry. And it basically has a lot of the actors. The actor, who's in it? It has Borge Allstedt, who played, not Borge Allstedt, no, he was dead. What's his name? Bertil Guv, who played Alexander. Who else was in here? Iwa Froling, who played Emil, and what is his name? Who else? Erland Josephson, who played Isak, and just a couple. I'm trying to think of who else. I think those basically. There are a couple others, mostly some screenwriters and I think other people. Mostly the people behind this. Jorn Donner, the executive producer, is in it. I think Peter Schultz, who's the assistant director. They just talk about working with him. They have some really nice shots of Bergman behind the scenes. A lot of shots. There's a great shot. I love the shot of Bergman and Isak, with Erland Josephson in bed together, and they're just smiling. That was a really nice shot of them. And I'm hoping to see a lot more of those in the making of documentaries. So there's little bits of footage of Bergman working with the children, and he's making them laugh, and so it's like you want to feel sorry for him. He's such a nice guy. He seems like such a really cool cool cat, And but he just makes weird movies, or he sometimes makes weird movies. It's like you never know with him. They make long movies. He throws in his own little touches, So anyway, that's it for me. That's it for Fanny Alexander, the television version. A-, not bad. First part goes on forever. Blah blah blah. So I would throw this, but we ain't done with it yet. Of course, this is the Fanny and Alexander week. As I mentioned before, I work tomorrow and I work Wednesday, so we're actually shifting the review schedule. We're going to do Thursday. We're going to do number 243. 243. The theatrical version, and then 244 Friday. The Making of Fanny Alexander, as well as the bonus disc, which is Bergman introductions, which are a bunch of introductions that he filmed for his movies, I guess in the early 2000s. Some of them, I think if they are what I think they are, then a lot of them we've already seen for Seventh Seal and other movies. Criterion has thrown them on as bonus features. So we'll watch that as well. And basically that's, oh gosh, I'm just looking at all this. Rare introductions. Optional English dub soundtrack on the theatrical version. Tempting. We might do that just this once, because I want to actually play it through, because it is its own thing. We may do that just because, and I've already seen the movie. We've already seen it with the full version with the real dialogue. So I don't know. We'll see about that. So anyway, that's for this week, and of course next week we'll get back to it. Friggin' what else? What do we got next week? What have we got next week? Eyes Without a Face, and then next week I'm working 4 days next week, so we'll only have time for 3 reviews as well next week. So Monday, Eyes Without a Face, and then Wednesday will be Shortcuts. Thursday, King of Kings, and then the week after that, last week is I am going to be out of town. Well, more on that later. We're just past the half-hour mark, and I don't want to keep you guys forever. So anyway, yeah. So that's it for me today. I have a lot more to say. Yeah, I'll have a lot more to say, but I'll save it for Wednesday, for Thursday. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Don't lock your adopted kids up in the attic, no matter how bad they are. And don't lie about your stepfather's children. I guess don't do that. And don't have mistresses. Monogamy and trust. What did Prince say in Sex? Come on. You guys have heard that B-side. Not really. And yeah, that's all I can say. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and we will see you on Thursday for the theatrical version to Fanny and Alexander, which will probably be pretty short. It'll probably just be me talking about. I got some other updates for you guys, so I'll probably dedicate that video for that, as well as I'll probably just talk about the differences between the two. And yeah, so that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on Thursday for the theatrical version. And until then, goodbye.